Yeah, Amy's here, we could start. I'd like to call the Madison School Board to order. Let's stand for the pledge. And where did it go?
We'll say it anyway.
Pledge into the Christmas tree.
Okay,
That's what I said.
no pledge. We will dispense with the pledge tonight. President's choice, sorry, guys. Surprised us. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melissa Walker is absent. Mrs. Cotterman.
Here.
Mr. Mosier.
Here.
Miss Amy Walker.
Here.
Mr. Wigton.
Here. We need a motion to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Mosier.
4.
Mrs. Cotterman.
4.
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mr. Wigton.
4. We need a motion to approve our previous board meeting minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Mosier.
4.
Mrs. Cotterman.
4.
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mr. Wigton.
4. We have presentation of certificates.
We do. I am excited to make a presentation to those folks that are here tonight. If you're here representing Mifflin Elementary, if you'd please come forward. So we have a nice banner to present to them. I'd like to recognize Mifflin for their selection by the Ohio Department of Education, Office of Federal Programs, as one of 2 schools in the state of Ohio to be recognized as a National Distinguished School for their excellent student performance and academic growth. To be selected as one of only 2 schools in Ohio and one of only 100 schools across the United States is a tremendous honor, and congratulations to Mifflin. This selection as a distinguished school is a tribute to the outstanding efforts of the students, the ongoing support of the student families, the tremendous instruction and support provided by the teachers and the support staff, and excellent leadership provided by Mr. Stump. I'd like to congratulate the entire Mifflin team for this tremendous accomplishment and provide you with the banner that you're holding to hang in the building as a symbol of your recognition as a distinguished school. Congratulations, Mifflin.
I'm sorry the award does not come with money, but congratulations. That's a tremendous honor. Okay, at this time, do we have any visitors who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, moving on to committee reports. Legislative Committee,
No report?
and nothing for Athletic Board of Control at this time. Student Representative. I don't know how you're not freezing.
Got baseball right after, heading right up. Things are busy as always at the high school. Boys basketball is off to a strong start. We've won back-to-back of our first 2 games. Ton of energy and momentum going into Friday's home game against Worcester. Girls basketball has also played 2 games. They play at home against New Philly tomorrow. Swim's got their first meet tonight at Norwalk, looking to do good. Tomorrow at the high school, during the school day, there's a dual wrestling meet with Clear Fork that all students are going to be able to come watch during the school day. That'll be exciting to help try and grow the sport. The Ramble Inn Coffee Shop is almost done, hoping to open as soon as we can. And Culinary Arts is also hosting their senior luncheon tomorrow afternoon. All clubs have started their shopping and prep for Mary Madison. Student Council, OCC leadership, Skills USA, and Key Club are all doing big things. Christmas Spirit Week just got voted in by student council. That should be fun. And a ton of other holiday activities. There's a Penny War fundraiser spearheaded by Key Club. It's already donated a good amount of money. And a canned food drive. All of Madison would agree that we are finishing 9 weeks strong.
Thank you for that. Facilities report.
Good evening. As we prepare for winter and we are working through our work orders, we also have several projects that we're looking to perform over Christmas break. Primarily at the high school, we will be finishing up the cafeteria project where we're turning that entire space into a lockdown area, installing masonry walls and doors. We also have some big plumbing projects that we're doing there. It gives us a chance, without anybody in the building, to get the water off and get that taken care of. We also have some masonry work inside where the back of the kitchen, the last course of block is starting to deteriorate and crumble, so we're going to have that pulled out and relayed. And then lastly, we're going to be installing at the high school and at the middle school at each building 2 bottle water filling stations and drinking fountains that were provided through a grant that Lisa Gonzalez worked for and got us through the EPA. So that's the plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Board policy,
No report.
okay. Student achievement, since Melissa's not here tonight. Superintendent's update.
Few updates, several to follow up on our student reps' comments. We are nearing the end of the second grading period. We're 3 weeks out from that, and that'll end, and we'll go right into Christmas break. As he shared also, there's a senior citizen luncheon tomorrow. That'll be at 12:30 in the Ramble Inn. And also tomorrow, as he stated, this, to my knowledge, hasn't happened in a long time. We will have an assembly tomorrow where the wrestling team will have a match with Clear Fork, and they'll do that during the school day to have the entire student body down there watching that. So that's exciting. Congratulations to Coach Armstrong and the boys basketball team as they're off to a great 2-0 start to start the season. Also, some more good news for Mifflin. They will be receiving a safety grant. We applied for safety grants for all of the buildings in the district. However, the only application that was accepted was Mifflin's, and they'll be receiving over $50,000 of improvements that we'll do in safety measures. We have some other monies that we think we'll be able to dedicate to some of the other buildings and doing some safety things there. Lastly, as you're all well aware, we've done a lot of research and discussion about the upcoming levy in the spring, and with that research and discussion, I'll be making a recommendation at next month's meeting to put an 8 mil levy on the ballot in the spring for additional operating revenues. That's it.
Okay. This time, presentation from Mr. Grove.
Good evening. So I'd like to bring your attention to the handout that I think everybody has. Front page should look like this. So as we go through this, tonight's outcomes of my presentation, we're going to review the CTPD, which is Career Tech Planning District. We're going to review our report card briefly. We're going to review the focus as we continue here for Career Tech, and then that long-awaited update on our coffee bar. So we'll do that at the very end. So next page here in your handout, our Career Tech report card overview. As you look here, first and foremost, I want to say as you look at this, all the credit goes to our students and our staff and the amount of hard work that they've put together to reflect our results on the report card. So we were graded on 4 of 6 components this year, and as you look, achievement was an A, career and post-secondary readiness was an A, graduation rate was an A, and post-program outcomes was an A. And if you combine all those together, in the world of ODE, unfortunately, that is a B overall. But I will explain that a little further of why and how that was a B. So next page here, as we get in this a little bit deeper, our achievement, we were with an A at a 92.8%. And as you see there, it's just broken down into our percentage, what our percentage equals in points, and then those points equal a letter grade. So as you see there, our 92.8% puts us in that third tier. So there is still definitely room for improvement, but we're definitely in the right direction with that. This achievement is based upon our web exam scores. So each program, through 11 of our programs, each course, each program, there are 4 courses, and each course has a web exam, or in essence, it's the same thing as an end of course exam. And that's just showing you how well our students are performing on their industry recognized, or within their industry, within those web exams. Those are typically around 40 to 60 questions. So again, you see our students performing very, very well there within those 11 programs. Next, career and post-secondary readiness. We did receive an A for this, and again, goes to our students. This is basically just seeing how well prepared our students are for a 2 or 4 year college, what they are doing, whether they're attending that, and workforce, et cetera. So you can see there, there's a couple sheets, additional pages to this. I did not include them as far as some other value points and things that we can earn, some bonus points for our students and where they're enrolled and what they're doing. I did not include that, but again, this is just reflecting what our students are doing beyond graduation. Graduation rates is an A at 96.6%. I just reflected there in your handouts the comparison of our career tech planning district to the state average, and as you see there, our 4 and 5 year graduation rates are above the state average as well. Again, 96.6% of our students, which is very good. The 4 year is class of 2021, who graduated within 4 years, that had entered 9th grade in 2017. Next page, post-program outcomes. We were sitting at currently at a 92.2%. This is just a little bit more in detail of where our students were placed. Again, what are they doing now at that 6-month mark after leaving high school. And one of the things I want to point out here is the percentage of students, 36.4% of our students earning 12 points of industry recognized credential. That is a very high number, and that is one of our goals as we continue to move forward, having our students earn up to 12 points. Again, that's not a requirement, but that is a goal that we're continuing to strive for. Federal indicators, and this is where we will get into how we received all A's, but our overall grade was a B. So as you look there within these indicators, there's only one indicator that we did not meet, and that was our non-traditional program enrollment indicators. So what that means is the state tells us within our 11 programs which programs are traditionally male or traditionally female. So for example, like our welding class, anytime that we have a student who is female in welding class, that is a point for that indicator. So as you see there, we're a little bit low with that. However, though, it's very difficult because the state says how your students enter the programs has to be a non-bias, basically blind lottery system. So if a female's first choice is welding, say you cannot promise them or tell them, I guarantee you will get into welding. It goes to a blind lottery system, and through that, they may not get into their first choice. So there are things that we are doing here, as you see in our action plan, continuing to invite former non-traditional students to speak, really trying to get our recruitment efforts up with that. Again, there are no promises, even though we may have a ton of recruitment for those programs, it still ultimately comes down to the federal guideline of you cannot select or interview students for these program placements. It has to be a blind lottery system. So we will continue to try to work on those things and working with the state on how we can improve that indicator. And as we move into 2023, we need to be up to 19%, and we were currently at 11.3. So we will, again, continue to work with the state and how we can get to that and meet that indicator. So the very last page is our overall grade. Again, those federal indicators do roll into this as well with that percentage. And even though we were all A's in 4 of our 6 components, because we did not meet up to 90% of all of those federal indicators, the highest point value we could receive is 4.124 points, which as you look on their overall point assignments, that is calculation of a B. So even though we got all A's on those components that we were graded on, because we didn't meet 90% of the federal indicators, which that non-traditional indicator, that dropped us down to a letter B overall, if that makes sense. Continued focus. 4 things I want to point out to you on here. Skills USA, we do have a community project coming up, partnering with actually Mansfield City's Career Tech Planning, their Career Tech. And we are partnering to do some donations and things for the domestic violence shelter and the Harmony House. That is being, all the credit goes to Mrs. Von Stein for organizing that. Our Skills USA chapter is working with their Skills USA chapter to get those things done so we can give back to the community. Senior-only credentialing program, looking at aligning those. So what that is that program is for seniors only to earn 12 points. Again, earlier I spoke about our goal being 12 points for an industry-recognized credential. So this would give an opportunity for students not in a career tech program to potentially earn 12 points of credentials, which is a potential alternative pathway for graduation as well. So looking at that competency in ELA and in math, maybe a student struggles taking those end of course exams. However, if they can earn a 12-point credential, that could replace that competency piece. So in adding a 12-point credentialing program for all students helps us fiscally as well, because we do receive some additional funding for that type of program and can help our students across the board, not just career tech students. We are also exploring, Mr. Turlo and Mr. Conway and myself, we are exploring potential addition of 2 programs, looking at potentially adding auto detailing and hospitality programs to partner with the culinary program. So again, just we're in the initial stages of visiting other places to see what those look like. And when we talk about meeting the needs of all of our students and creating those endless opportunities, these are things that we need to continue to look at and to strive for, to see what it is we can offer our students to help them be the most successful that they can. The last thing I want to bring to your attention with this is choosemct.org. I don't know if anybody here or in this room has ever heard of that, but that is something that was here before I was, so I'm not going to take credit for it. However, though, I do want to bring it to your attention because I think it needs attention, because there are a lot of really great things on here that outline all 11 of our career tech programs. There's also adult ed links in there as well. So Luke, if you could just scroll down and you click on programs. View programs. So this just again outlines each program, and if you click on, just go ahead and click on the first one, automotive. If you click learn more, there is a ton of detail in here about what it is, what's required, skills that are to be learned, and just different job opportunities that are that align with this industry. We talk about industry recognized credentials and how important those are. At the end of the day, our students are ASC certified within those particular areas. In each program, this is laid out. So if there's any questions about what does your culinary arts program do, what can they learn, what do they earn, there are updated pictures and all of that information on there as well. So somebody has a question about career tech education, this is a great place to start, or a phone call to myself as well. And the last part that I have is just a few brief pictures in the handout for you for the Common Grounds, our coffee bar. Progress is coming along very, very nicely. We're looking at potentially being done Friday with a couple tweaks next week. And then we're going to be looking at what are our times going to be, students learning the machines, how to make these things, how quickly can we service, get customers through, and all of those things. So that's coming along very quickly. I appreciate your support with that, students and staff, and I think there's a ton of excitement about that too. So when that's finished, those of you that are going to luncheon, you'll see it tomorrow, but it really does look awesome in there. So I thank you for that support. Any questions? All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Next, we need a motion to accept donations from the Mifflin PTO and from Corey Thayer.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion. I'd like to thank both of these, well, the organization as well as the individual for donating. Roll call?
Miss Amy Walker,
4.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Mr. Mosier,
4.
Mr. Rigdon.
4. Treasurer's report. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
Oh, was it? Okay. All right, discussion, you ready for me?
Yep.
All right, first thing I'm going to direct your attention to is the monthly financial report. There wasn't really any anomalies in October. The expenses exceeded revenues in October, but that is common because in October, all we're getting is state foundation. We're not getting anything from property taxes. The increase in revenues over last October was because of the state foundation increase, which we knew that was going to go up because this is the second year of the phase-in, so we knew that was going to increase. As far as expenses, the increase, that was all due to timing. I don't know if you remember a month ago when I talked about September, and I said September was an anomaly because some things were down and other things were up. Well, the purchase services are down in October as far as expenditures because the purchase services were up in September. It just all had to do with timing. Nothing is, if you look at the overall indicator for the year, as of end of October last year, the expenditures had exceeded revenues by around $384,000. This year was around $398,000, so it's around a 3.6% increase, which is what I'm indicating as an average in the forecast, which with the price of gas going up, price of electricity going up, the negotiated agreement this year in October was different than it was last year in October. That makes perfect sense. The next page, I had several administrators reach out to me and give me some suggestions on some things that I should add, something they thought would be a good idea to help support Mr. Peterson, like next month when he gives the recommendation for an 8 mil levy, and just basically for the community when they ask, so why do we need this? These 3 graphs won't change until the next forecast comes out, and then they might not change a whole lot during the next forecast. But the first one's just basically a chart that shows the general fund balance for the year and what is going to happen to it as time progresses. And the green is where we really want to be. We need to be at our goal with the strategic plan is 60 days, which is 2 months cash, which is about $5.4 million. That's that green bar. The red bar is where we're going to be. So as you can see, it's going down. The next one, there's a green bar and a red bar and a blue bar. The green is basically how our revenues are increasing. The green is how our revenues are increasing. The red is how our expenditures are increasing. And you can see they're growing apart because our expenditures are growing faster than our revenues. And then the blue is the cash balance, which mirrors those red bars in the graph above. And we talked about the overall cash balance. In the report, Mr. Peterson and I had discussed a while ago in the very first page about the general fund cash balance, how many days on cash we have. And I've done that by month in the first page. But a couple administrators said it would be nice to know what it's going to be at the end of the year. So this is the end of the fiscal year operating cash, how it goes down. And like I said, we really want to be at 60 days, which is 2 months. That's what the GFOA recommends, which is the Government Finance Officers Association. It's what is standard and recommended. So that's just showing that. Like I said, these I'll throw in here. I'll probably leave them in here for, the next several months, but they're not going to change. The next page, I don't know if you remember the first couple of these I gave you. I basically gave you a percentage of the forecast, how we are compared to what the forecast is. Since this is the first month of the forecast for this fiscal year, I brought it back in. October was a third of the way through the year, so that's 33%. Obviously, revenues and expenditures they're pretty close, 35, 36, they're within that range, but that will, as time progresses, balance out closer to the mid, so when they're halfway through the year, it'll most likely be closer than, it'll be like 49 or 51, it'll be real close. But that's just an indication of how we're doing compared to the forecast. And the last page doesn't change. Any questions on this monthly board report before I move on to the 5-year forecast? All right, next, 5-year forecast. I put the slides in front of you so you don't have to turn your head all the way around and look. But before I get started, 5-year forecast obviously is a tool, and it's a snapshot at a point in time, okay? So meaning as things change, it means the forecast is either more correct or more wrong. For example, by the end of this forecast, there's going to be 2 more biennium budgets. You guys have all sat in on meetings. Mr. Peterson and I have had meetings with even Mr. Romanchuk. Nobody knows what the next biennium budget is going to be, let alone 2 more. You also know that there's going to be at least 1 negotiated contract before the end of this 5-year forecast. So this snapshot is at this point in time based on assumptions that we know at this point in time. Things can change. A month before the pandemic happened, we didn't know things were going to happen, and it completely blew up the forecast in 2020. So just keep in mind, this is the best tool we have with a snapshot right now. And also understand that this is general fund money only. So when Mr. Peterson talks about like the safety grant, that isn't in here. When Mrs. Gonzalez talked about ESSER funds, those aren't in here. They're, athletics is not in here. This is just general operating funds, because the general operating funds is where our state foundation comes in, and it's where all the property taxes come in. So that's why that's what this is about. So obviously the forecast is broken up into 2 sections, revenues and expenditures. The top points out the revenues, the bottom's expenditures. The only real control we have over revenues, real control, is adding levies, asking for more money. And we haven't asked for more money in the last new money in the last 25 years. So that's why we're going to need to do that now, because we're in deficit spending and our expenditures are increasing at a higher rate than our revenues. So that's why the need. I'm not going to go into every single revenue because there's no sense in diving into the weeds when over 90% of our revenues can basically come from 2 things, either state foundation or real estate taxes. So overall, our revenues are projected to grow by 1.6% on an average over the next 5 years. So let's talk a little bit about the local revenues. So that's line 1.010 and 1.020, the top 2, which are general property taxes. And they're not going to get a lot of growth, and here's why. The only way we get growth on property taxes is with new construction, because we're not at what's called the 20 mil floor. When people's valuation goes up, the millage rate goes down. And because our millage rate goes down, we collect the same amount. So the only way we get more money is when somebody builds something new construction. So because of that, we're not going to get a whole lot more, not projected to receive a whole lot more in local revenues. However, should our levy pass, these 2 lines is where that revenue will come into play. State foundation is based on a biennium budget. Okay, that's lines 1.035 and 1.040. Go back again. Unrestricted and restricted grant and aids. So the Fair School Funding Formula was designed to be phased in over a 6-year period. That's well documented, but the legislature is only able to certify 2 years. So because they're only able to certify 2 years of the 6-year period, they said they were going to phase it in. Well, the percentage that they're capping the phase in at, right now we're getting 2.6 million, almost $2.7 million less than what the state says we should get. Mr. Peterson and I have talked to Mr. Romanchuk, you guys out there, the board, everybody here, and myself and Mr. Peterson, we've sat down with a gentleman by the name of Aaron Roush, who is a chief of budgeting and school funding at ODE. We've sat down with Chris Moore as a school budgeting consultant for K-12. I spent 2 hours listening to a guy by the name of Dr. Howard Fleeter, who's a consultant with the Ohio Educational Policy Institute. Nobody can tell us really everybody's got a different opinion, and nobody really knows what is going to happen with the state foundation. So what I've had to do on the state foundation is to be relatively conservative based on what we have gotten, based on what we should get, and just put a small 3% increase in. We won't know in May if that 3% increase is right or wrong, because they don't have to vote on the Fair School Funding Plan to decide if they're going to continue to phase it in until next end of June 30th. By May, we will know, we most likely will know the governor's plan, and it might be through one chamber of the Congress, chambered in Columbus, but we won't have any idea. So because I can't put in, hey, we're going to get, the next 2.67 million, that would be fiscally irresponsible, because if they don't put it in, then I'm going to come back to you next year and say, oh, we should have gone for a levy, and I didn't tell you, and then it would look very bad. So I had to put in conservative 3% to show that, hey, we should be getting more money. Can't guarantee we're going to get a lot more, but this could change next November. It's probably not going to change a lot by May, but it could change next November. That being said, for the public to know, that was one of the major issues with the board's deliberation with what to ask for in millage, because we really have had to spend a lot of time thinking about, hey, what is the state going to do, and how are we going to come to how much we need? So this is pretty important in that. So that's the revenues. Before I move on to expenditures, do you guys have any questions for me, want to ask me or anything? So expenditures is the bottom half, and expenditures, like revenues, I wish we had a lot more control over them. We do have some control, but they're dictated by things that, for example, the negotiated agreement, that dictates the wages and personnel. Healthcare premiums, we can do everything we can, like this wellness check, to try to keep people healthy, but I can't, the board, nor myself, nor Mr. Peterson, have any control over how much, doctors' bills go up and how much designer drugs go up. So, I put that in as an 8%, which is pretty common. So those benefits, I'd love to be able to control them, but we really don't. So those are two areas we can't control. Personnel or purchase services. We can't control the price of electricity. The only thing we can do, which has a small effect, is we can lock in with a consortium, which we have. We're in a consortium for electric. We're in a consortium for gas. Mr. McVicker back there has been working very diligently with trying to get things corrected with our phone system. So, we can control those expenses a little bit, but they don't have as much of an impact as, they have an impact, but not enough to completely swing the forecast. Because, when you look at this next slide, 95% of our expenditures are on wages, benefits, and purchase services. And that makes sense, because we're a service industry. We're not making widgets. We're educating kids, which is a service industry. So, when half of our salary or half of our revenues go to wages and 34% goes to benefits, that makes sense. And like I said, purchase services, if a child on an IEP needs a PT, physical therapist, or an OT, we can't deny it, and we can't tell them, no, we're not going to hire you because you charge too much, when there's only like one or two that offer it. You know, so you've got it, there's certain things that we can only do, control so much. So that's why those are pretty much fixed. So 95% of our budget is based on three things. So personnel services, which is basically the wages. There's something I want to point out on this forecast. I did put in steps for the whole thing, but after this contract is over, I didn't put any base wage increases, okay? So this line, 3.010, after FY24 does not have base wage increases, just step increases. Now, there is a substantial jump in FY25, and the reason there's a substantial jump in FY25 is because we are paying people with ESSER money. And when that runs out, we've got to pay them out of general fund because that money's not going to come from anyplace else. So I had to put it back in the forecast somewhere. So that's why that line bumps up. Benefits, you know, STRS and SERS is tied to wages. So as that goes up, as wages go up, those go up. I already spoke to you guys about the insurance. I put an 8% increase in there. Now, I'd love, Mr. Peterson and I had some discussions. We did go out for a bid on our medical portion, and it was just the stop loss, not the whole entire thing, just the stop loss. And we were able to knock that down a little bit, which I'll have on the next month's board agenda to vote on. But, you know, that being said, 8% is going to be what I should project for the next, you know, not this year, but 24, 25, and 26, because that's just what we should expect, because that's common. I talked to you guys a little bit about purchase services, and it, you know, assumptions are based on market trends, past historical data, where we are in, you know, our contracts as far as, you know, electricity in the consortium, gas in the consortium, and things like that. This is that graph that I have in your monthly board report. Basically just shows expenditures increasing at a higher rate than revenues and our cash balance decreasing. And if we don't have additional funds by spring of 2025, we're going to be in the negative. And then the last few lines, the bottom lines, well, they're not the very bottom, but they're the big bold ones. Line 6.010, that is expenditures over revenues or revenues over expenditures. It either tells you you've got a deficit spending or you have excess. Well, we are in deficit spending. Last year we were about 1.5 million. This year we're projected to be about 1.75 million, and it just compounds year after year because our expenses are increasing higher than our revenues quicker. And then line 7.010 is the cash balance, which I already talked to you guys about the 2-month target. I apologize that it's not rainbows and kittens, but it is what it is. And before I move on, I would like to entertain any questions. Anybody want to add anything?
No, you know, the district has gone 25 years without asking for new money, and I don't know any household that could operate their house that way.
That's true.
We have to have additional monies, and we're not going to get it from the state to the extent that we need it. And I think our programming is wonderful. We'd like to add some things, and you can't do that without money. And if the district likes what their schools are, they need to support them. And that's what it comes down to.
I couldn't agree more.
But I thank you for your report, very informative.
Thank you. Ready for roll call?
Anybody else? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Mosier.
4.
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mrs. Connerman.
4.
Mr. Wigton.
4. Strategic plan, student learning and support.
All right, so the area of the strategic plan that Renee and I have is the student learning and support. You can all see the goal at the top: through diverse educational offerings, Madison Local Schools collaborates with students, families, and community members to challenge all learners by providing relevant and innovative opportunities while supporting a range of needs to maximize achievement. Kind of tried to cover everything within that goal. We have 3 strategies. The first one addresses performance index, which is a measurement of how students are performing. And we carried that over from last year, looking to either improve or maintain expected growth as measured by the value added. This is done mainly within the building. I mean, it is within the building leadership teams. That's at the last 2 pages that we gave you are the plans that the buildings have from their building leadership teams on how they're going to work on improving the PI or maintaining those scores. The highlighted portions are the portions that they added this year. The non-highlighted portions are things that some of them have carried over from last year or were in last year's plan. So that is discussed at, majority of principals reported back that it was discussed at staff meetings in September, and then the building leadership teams then take the reins and run with it as far as implementing some plans to improve the performance index as a whole. We won't know the end result of that until we get the performance index scores from this school year, so that'll be going into next year. If you turn the page, the second strategy that we're utilizing is looking to create and implement innovative programs to support intervention and enrichment opportunities. So not only are we addressing the students that need extra support, we're trying to take those students that are our high performers and push them even further. There's 3 action steps within that that we're implementing. One is we're aligning MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support, documentation alignment. So that's our RTI, is what it was previously known as. That is identifying students who need extra support within the classroom that may not be identified to receive special education services, but providing some interventions to see if those can help support the student in making some growth. We're using Branching Minds. Renee and I had done some research into a variety of different programs. This program does offer support as far as it gives a jumping off point for teachers to be able to find interventions that are aligned with what they're trying to work on. And then it allows them a way to progress monitor. We're really just dipping our big toe in with this program right now, and I would say that there's been a good response from the teachers. I've been working on things a little bit each day. When teachers have a question, I'll reach out to the program, make sure that we can implement it how they want us to do it. The second action step is we're looking to enrichment opportunities within each of our buildings. Largely at the high school and middle school, those are going to be offered through course offerings, an advanced track course. Within the elementary schools, each of the 3 buildings discussed, and you can see it within the plans there, that they're providing some enrichment during intervention time. So some kids are receiving intervention in something that they may be struggling or they need support in, while other kids are getting enrichment opportunities and they're excelling. Let's push them a little further. Let's help them maximize their potential. And then the last of the 3 action steps is implementing an SEL, which is a social emotional learning screener, and follow up with interventions, trying to think about the whole child. And within Branching Minds, the program that we are using, there is a social emotional screener that we're looking to complete training on in December, and then we'll have a universal rollout across the district in January. If a student were to be identified as having a need in that, then it's going to take us into another extended screener that's going to allow us to dig in and see how exactly we can support them.
And then our last strategy there is by the end of 2022-23 school year, each building will create and implement innovative programs to support, wrong one. It's on the Instructional Technology Committee. That we will be establishing an Instructional Technology Committee. This has become a need for us, and it has taken a little bit of a shift with new interim tech director, Mr. McVicker. So we were going to go with a team concept, but we are absorbing this team into kind of our principals meetings. And Mr. McVicker does have a lot of previous experience with curriculum and instruction. So kind of bridging that together, working with the buildings on instructional needs and technology, And so we are still going to be completing these action steps, but under the principals meeting instead of an instructional tech committee. So we will still look to identify barriers in the district and in each building in regards to technology, and also create procedures to address barriers and problem solve, how we can better assist teachers and staff members with technology, and what that looks like in more of an instructional technology lens, rather than just making technology decisions and also curriculum decisions, but blending those two to work more cohesively.
Any questions over what? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is matters related to personnel. I need a motion to accept those.
So moved. I'll second.
Second?
Thanks.
I need a second.
I second.
Oh, Mary second, I'm sorry.
That's
Missed
okay.
that. Discussion. Roll call.
Miss Amy Walker,
4.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Mr. Mosier. 4. Mr. Wigton.
4. Okay, that takes us to superintendent's business. Need a motion there?
I'll second.
Discussion?
No.
Roll call.
Mr. Mosier. 4. Miss Amy Walker,
4.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Mr. Wigton.
4. We now have an opportunity for any more visitors who haven't walked in, so I guess we're okay. Next is president's business. Our next regular board meeting will be 2 weeks earlier than normal, so it'll be December 14th. And we need a motion to go into an executive session for items D and E, which would be preparing or conducting and reviewing negotiating or bargaining sessions with public employees, and matters required to be kept confidential by federal law. So move. Okay, Mary, move. Second?
Go for it.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Mr. Mosier,
4.
Miss Amy Walker,
4.
Mr. Wigton.
4. When we return from executive session, there will be no business conducted, so everybody have an enjoyable evening.
So I need to put a star by name.